Interviewing programmers. How do you interview? What do you look for? And who do you look for? So my first step is make sure they're programmers.
How do you make sure they're a programmer?
I make sure they're programmers by asking about their GitHub, asking about side projects that they work on, like trying to understand the choices that they made in their stack for their side projects, trying to see what their history is like with programming, so their relationship like with programming, like my hacking and freaking days. I wish David was here, he'd make fun of me. And
do you freely admit them?
What?
Your hacking and freaking
Oh,
days?
absolutely.
What was your best hack?
A DCOCS switch, which was a long distance carrier switch that handled all long distance phone calls across the United States. Pretty baller.
You're so cool. Don't edit that out.
Damn it. So what do you guys look for? Like, how do you gauge whether or not someone is who you want?
I lost all motivation. So interviewing people, I mean, that's the problem, is I don't think it's something that's done very well right now, and I don't know if I think there is an answer to how to do it well.
Really?
I mean, like, everything you just said is good, but all of that can be faked pretty easily.
Okay, so here's another thing that I throw in is,
have you ever hired someone on the data that you've collected through the interview process and been like, dude, they totally faked me out?
No, but I have seen that happen. It has not happened to me, but I have seen that happen.
So what I like to do, honestly, it's about figuring out how people think, right? I want critical thinkers, I want lateral thinkers. I'm gonna throw out every phrase I've ever read in any book about thinking.
Yeah. Actualize.
But honestly, so we talked about it before, whiteboarding sucks, right? So what I like to do is I'll try to come up with some question that I don't know the answer to, that I'm just thinking of. Like, how many Tootsie Rolls does it take to get to the moon? Right?
Like the Microsoft questions.
But it basically shows you how people think, and if you don't know the answer, you can like work with them on discovering the answer.
Yeah, but the problem
So
is
how
how
do you-
applicable is that to programming?
Well, if you've gotten everything else out of the way, this is, I think, an additional level of understanding.
So here's the problem with that scenario, right? You have this question in your mind, like this curiosity of yours. And candidate one kind of comes in, and the two of you have kind of a session, and you let the candidate do most of the thinking. So he or she is either at a whiteboard or at a computer screen or kind of just sitting down having coffee with you. And then you may or may not hire that candidate right on the spot. Then candidate two comes along. Do you ask the same question? Because now it's a different experience. You are now more knowledgeable with candidate two than you were with candidate one.
You don't ask the same question.
So how do you compare people?
Right.
Because it's a different question.
Well, because you like look at how they think and then like feel like what it was like working with.
I guess the problem though is it's not quantifiable. And I
a
mean,
lot of hiring, I think, is gut.
yeah, but
For some people, it can be. Like, there's a lot of people, especially out here in the Valley, that are not, like, gut thinkers like that. And they have computer science or computer engineering backgrounds, and, like, they think in logic and they think in systems. And for them, it would be very difficult for them to trust their gut, per se.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's also the beer test, right? Do you think that you can go out and have a beer with this person and just enjoy their company? Because at least working at the level of companies that we're working at, so I work at a startup, he works at a slightly larger startup, he works at a startup as well. I mean, these are people that you're going to have to learn to be friends with. Don't you agree? Do you think you're going to have to be friends with the people you work with?
but that's not the part that's hard. I mean, like, yeah, you can tell whether or not you like somebody, but if they suck at coding, I'm still not going to hire them.
Right, but you can find out if they suck at coding pretty easily.
Or if you like someone and you hire them and they suck at coding, you're not going to like them later on.
Yes.
Right? Because, like, they're earning equity, they're not pulling their weight, or they're not doing this other thing, and that creates tension, right? So, like, we should all be pro athletes out here, we should all be pro coders, and we should all be able to carry our own weight. Some of us are going to be team leads at times, and others of us are going to be team leads at other times, and we need to kind of be able to share that dynamic and move forwards, right? So, like, I want to make sure that I can talk to somebody that's like checkbox 1. If you can't talk to them, that's a problem. But you're not at the interview at that point. You're on the phone test, and you're trying to like understand what they're thinking about and the things that they're kind of going through. Personally, on the interview,
it's screening more than interviewing in a way.
Yeah. So, like, personally for me, like, whenever I get into an interview and they're like, we're going to do a problem on the whiteboard, I pretty much have come to the consensus that, like, I never want to work at one of these companies. Because, first off, when do you actually write a function on a whiteboard? I don't know if you guys have programmed out there, but
they're over here.
Yeah.
No one writes functions on
I program on my whiteboard. That's my main editor, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
And when you make a mistake, do you like erase it?
Yeah, it is an Emacs plugin. It works.
Do you have an app on your iPhone where you take a picture, it compiles, and interprets?
Yeah, OCR is the thing.
Yeah, that's it.
No,
There is an Emacs.
That might be inefficient. I'm just throwing that out there.
Huh, that's why it takes me like hours to write this.
I actually code on paper, put it in a bottle, throw it in the sea, and then give someone else directions on like how to submit a pull request.
Right.
And then I wait. So maybe slightly inefficient, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the other problem is generally the questions that get asked as whiteboard questions are not really the kind of thing you do as a programmer. Like, reverse a linked list or sort an array. Like, when I sort an array, I call array underscore sort with the fucking array as a variable.
Well, yeah.
Like, I can do those problems because I know when I get interviewed, I'm going to be asked those problems.
PHP programmer in the house. Am I right or am I right?
What was that?
I said PHP programmer.
Yeah.
I called you out on that. I was like, array underscore. I'm like, what language is underscore as a fucking? Oh shit! I saw what you did.
Yeah.
So,
To be fair, JavaScript does too.
okay, fine.
So
It's true.
So, what else? So we want to know that they're familiar maybe with the languages that we're using or the technology that we're using.
I don't care about language.
I'm language agnostic.
Actually,
I can tell.
I think language is a really important thing to understand in the interview, actually, because if you've got an environment where you're using lots of Python or you're using lots of JavaScript, right? Again, you want to hire that pro athlete in that area. And if someone doesn't know Python or doesn't know JavaScript, and those are the two core languages of your company, they're going to spend some time learning the idiosyncrasies, the grammar, the sort of special syntax that people use to describe shortcuts to the pattern. And you can't just pick that up in a day, right? Those are things that take months to pick up.
Though. I don't think it, like, I have never, every single position I have ever had, I went into it not knowing the language that the position was using.
And a lot of positions
Well,
only
no, except
require
for my
the
first one. My first one out of college was Python, and I already knew Python. Everything since then, like, I had to learn the language on the job.
And a lot of the interviews only require pseudocodes in most of the cases.
Well, right, but so what I try to do is I try to ask people deep questions about a project they worked on in that scenario, and I try to ask them about roadblocks that they ran into with it. And you can kind of get an idea of the types of things that people have to solve or work through.
Right, or how they solved it, really. Like.
Right. I actually, to take that back a little ways, I think if there's kind of categories I'd put things in. Like, if somebody has only written Ruby and Python, and I'm interviewing for a C++ programming thing, you got to know some C++ before you get the position.
So it depends on the level of
specialty. But if somebody's been writing Ruby forever and the thing's in Python, I'm more willing to let them learn it on the job because it's, in my opinion, a lot more similar.
But if you had two candidates, right? Here's the point, right? The problem is you're evaluating people as it's 2.2% unemployment in the Bay Area. Like, you're like, it's impossible to find a developer, and I've got a team of people that I'm spending $100K a month on. And if I spend an extra month looking for the right candidate versus hiring someone who can learn it in a month or two, where's my risk reward as that hiring manager, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we deal with out here. In other parts of the country, it's kind of a little bit different.
Yeah, that's
right?
definitely true.
And I find that if you hire really good talent and really good people, that other people want to work and learn from those people, right? So people work harder, they try to catch up, they feel competitive, not in a counteractive way, but in a cooperative way together on the team.
So how do you, I guess, let's say talking about the team thing, how do you check whether or not somebody's going to be able to work with your team in an interview? Do you have them interview with each person in the team and do like pair programming work?
So, I mean, again, there's a trade-off between like disrupting the team, how many candidates you're going to interview. And I personally, at that level, I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
But I think whiteboarding is horrible. I think programming on tasks are good.
How do you feel about pair programming?
I was on the end of an interview with a pair programmer once.
Yeah.
And it was kind of an awkward sort of scenario because we did test-driven development. And it was the first time that I'd done test-driven development. And obviously I was being benchmarked against other people who had been doing it their whole careers.
Yeah.
So like, it wasn't fair for me. There's no way I was going to win at this, right? But it was an interesting experience nonetheless to kind of see how the other side maybe does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like pair programming is something that I need to personally do more of. Because when somebody's staring at my terminal, and I just forget every command I know. Literally every one.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I'm just so nervous.
Absolutely. No, it happens to everyone.
Yeah.
There's like
Being judged.
Yeah, no. It's like it's super common. It happens to me all the time. Like you're working on something, and then someone comes over, and then even just a friend, and they're like, "Oh yeah, like what were you doing?" You're like, and you start fat fingering things.
Right.
You start forgetting how to list files in a
You're like,
directory.
I was just looking at Reddit. Like, let's be honest.
S maybe,
Yeah.
and you're like
Yeah.
just.
You start worrying what you have open in browser tabs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like close
browser.
YouPorn.
Yeah.
Okay, so
To take stem from this question though, how do you separate that problem out of interviews? People get nervous in interviews and hit brain locks.
then it's sort of your job to make people feel comfortable.
Yeah, so I think this is one thing that really lacks in interviews. Half of the interview is about you making them feel welcome and that you would hire them. And then the other half of the interview is making sure that they're the right person to hire.
Yeah. Okay, so hopefully you developers at home looking to come out to San Francisco, get hired, you have some insight to how we interview and what we're looking for. And practice, build your own projects, and because that shows a lot of passion, and we're going to ask you questions about them all.